Brother play online when some guy on his team started screaming into the mic, "You're trash! You never help me! I carry this whole team!" I looked at the screen. The guy had 0 kills. My brother stayed calm.
You've got no kills and you've died 6 times. What exactly am I not supporting?
The guy yelled, "It's not my fault! Why aren't you playing well?" Then my brother's friend jumped in.
Are you dumb or acting dumb? He's literally carrying the whole game.
The guy got louder. "Shut up! When my connection is good, I'm the best player alive." My brother said,
You're talking about a bot lobby. And even then, you're only slightly better than the bot.
"God damn! Just wait until my..."
Online YouTube, I don't know what just happened. Because I might have heard my mic fail in my storage room. So we're gonna be reacting to Xenost. We're gonna be reacting to Xenost. Let's go.
I was watching my little brother play online
That's
when...
why you don't. That's why you don't mess with kids.
Some guy on his team started screaming into the mic, "You're trash! You never help me! I carry this whole team!" I looked at the screen. The guy had 0 kills. My brother stayed calm.
You've got no kills and you've died 6 times. What exactly am I not supporting?
The guy yelled, "It's not my fault! Why aren't you playing well?" Then my brother's friend jumped in.
Are you dumb or acting dumb? He's literally carrying the whole game.
The guy got louder. "Shut up! When my connection is good, I'm the best player alive." My brother said,
You're talking about a bot lobby. And even then, you're only slightly better than the bot.
The guy snapped, "Just wait until my connection is fast again." My brother didn't even flinch. He said,
The only slow connection here is the one you never had with your dad.
The whole voice chat went silent. Somebody quietly said,
"Bro, the guy left the game."
I was watching my little brother play online when some guy... I was at a restaurant when a guy sat down at my table, pulled my plate over, and started eating my food. I said, "It's fine, take it. I'll order another." He grinned with his mouth full. Smart choice. So I ordered again. He slid that one over too and ate it. I said nothing. I got up, stopped by the waiter, pointed at the guy, then waved at him across the room. He waved back, still chewing. I sat down and ordered a 3rd plate. He reached for it. I pulled it back. "Only if your brain was as big as your stomach, you'd know when to stop." He laughed.
Damn.
"Relax, it's just food. You can afford it." I said, "I can, and I still wouldn't do what you do. You've got no money and no shame. Rough combo for one guy." He puffed up. "You think you're better than me?" I said, "I don't think it. You just ate proof off 3 plates." Then the waiter set the check down in front of him. He froze. "Why is this mine?" I said, "Remember when I waved? You waved back. That was you agreeing to cover the table." I stood up. "You reached for everything today. Congrats. You finally caught the bill." I was at a restaurant when a guy sat down at my table, pulled my plate over, and started eating...
What the fuck? Oh hell.
My ex showed up at my door 2 years
They finna get bubble neck and start twerking up in it.
after she left me and said,
I've been thinking about us. I want to try again.
I said, 2 years ago you said I had no future. What changed? She smiled.
I was wrong. You've done really well for yourself. I can see that now.
I said, so the future showed up and now you want a ticket? She stepped closer.
golden.
Don't be like that. We had something real.
I said, we had something real until a guy with a nicer car said hello. You left me at a bus stop in the rain to go get in it. She looked down.
That was a mistake. He wasn't who I thought he was.
I said, let me guess. Turns out the car was rented. She went quiet.
How did you know that?
I said, because he told me. Marcus. We work together now. He's my assistant. Her face dropped. I said, he talks about you sometimes. Says leaving you was the best thing that ever happened to him. Funny. I say the same thing. She stammered.
So, you two just talk about me?
I said, no, we're busy. You just came up once, the day I hired the guy you left me for. Then I stepped back inside and said, you traded up to a guy who brings me coffee now. My ex showed up at my door 2 years after she left me and said,
I've been thinking about us. I want to try again.
I said, I was waiting for the elevator when the doors opened and a woman put her hand up.
Not enough room. Wait for the next one.
The elevator was empty. I said, ma'am, it's just you in there. She said,
Me and my space. My space needs space.
I stepped in anyway. She gasped like I'd broken in.
Excuse me? Did I say you could enter?
I said, it's an elevator, not your living room. There's no guest list. She
Damn.
pressed herself against the wall.
You're standing too close. This is my ride.
I said, it's everyone's ride. That's why there's buttons for 12 floors and not just yours. She got louder.
I take this elevator every day. People know to wait for me.
I said, they're not waiting for you. They're taking the stairs to avoid you. Her face went red as a tomato. The doors opened and a man tried to step in. She stuck her arm out.
Full. Catch the next one.
The man looked at the empty elevator and said, unlike your brain, this thing can clearly hold more than one thing at a time. Then he stepped in. The doors opened again and a little kid tried to step in. She stuck her arm out.
No room. Wait for the next one.
The kid looked and said, lady, you're not heavy enough to book a whole elevator. I was waiting for the elevator when the doors opened and a woman put her hand up.
Not enough room.
Aim assist, which can help you win.
A woman called in and said,
So I need advice. This rich guy was obsessed with me. He begged to take me out and paid me $20,000 a date. Obviously. Look at me.
I said, I can't. It's radio. She ignored that.
Anyway, his best friend messages me secretly. Says he'll pay $25,000 for one date. Don't tell anyone.
I said, so you told his best friend yes and told yourself it was a coincidence? She said,
I didn't even want to. He begged me. It's not my fault men throw money at me.
I said, ma'am, you didn't trip and fall onto 25 grand. You showed up early. She got defensive.
Whatever. A month later, the first guy blocks me. No text, nothing. So now I'm suing him for emotional damage.
I said, emotional damage? You dated his best friend for a bonus. The only thing damaged is your math. She snapped.
He should have respected me.
I said, you went behind his back for an extra 5 grand and you want to lecture on respect. That's like robbing a bank and complaining about the interest rate. She said,
You don't understand. I'm the victim here.
that's when my co-host Nard leaned into the mic and said,
Yeah, about that. I'm the best friend. The one who paid you 25 grand. See, me and him had a bet. He said no way you'd cheat on him. I said everybody's got a price. So I offered you 5 grand more and now you're calling a radio station to brag about the receipt.
A woman called in and said,
So I need advice. This rich guy was obsessed with me. He begged to take me out and paid me $20,000
a woman grabbed my wrist and said,
Stop, I sense a dark energy following you.
I said, that's not dark energy, that's my fart. She closed her eyes.
The spirits are telling me you've suffered a great loss. I said,
What the
yeah.
fuck?
$50 if I keep listening to you. She said,
I can feel it. You've been betrayed by someone close.
I said, ma'am, you've known me for 9 seconds. She opened one eye.
The energy doesn't lie. For $50, I can cleanse it.
I said, for free, I can walk away. She stepped in front of me.
Wait, I also see great wealth in your future.
I said, weird. I see none in yours and you're the psychic. She got louder.
You're blocking your own blessings by not believing.
I said, you turned my fart into dark energy. I can't take you seriously. She said,
The spirits work in mysterious ways.
I said, so does your rent apparently, since you're doing this on a sidewalk. She pointed at me.
Mock me and the curse stays.
I said, then lift it, right now, free of charge, go. Then a kid walking past said,
If she was really psychic, she'd have seen that coming.
a woman grabbed my wrist and said,
It's sweet. It dissolves easily in water.
It's used to preserve food.
It comes in crystals and powder form. Who's the spy? Player 3 is the imposter. Today's word is syrup.
It's sticky. It's mostly used in dessert and drinks.
It's smooth and sugary.
It tastes sour. Who's the spy?
Player 4 is the imposter.
Today's word is chili pepper.
I was setting up at the squat rack when a guy in a tank top stepped in front of the mirror and said,
This spot's mine. Find another one.
I said, you've been posing here for 20 minutes. It's a squat rack, not a photo booth. He flexed.
I reserved it. I'm in a building phase.
I said, the only thing you're building is a relationship with yourself. He got loud.
Do you know how much I lift?
I said, clearly not enough to move out of the way. He pointed at his arms.
People pay to look like this.
I said, people pay to leave when you walk in. That's different. He said,
I've been coming here 3 years.
I said, 3 years. And the only thing that's grown is your ego and the sweat stain. He puffed up.
I could snap you in half.
I said, with what? You built a mansion on top of 2 chopsticks. Then a girl on the next machine said,
Can you lower your arm? It stinks.
I was setting up at the squat rack when a guy in a tank top stepped in front of the mirror and said,
This spot's mine.
I was at the park with my nephew when a woman blocked the slide and said,
This playground is ours today. Find another one.
I said, ma'am, it's a public park. There's a sign right there. She said,
We come here every day. That makes it ours.
I said, I go to the gym every day. They still won't let me live there. She waved her hand.
My son needs space to play. Your kid can wait.
Right then, her son shoved a smaller kid off the swing. She clapped. I said, you're raising a tiny landlord and you're proud of it. She got louder.
Don't talk about my son. He's gifted.
I said, he's gifted at pushing toddlers. Then I asked, ma'am, do you have a husband? She said,
Of course not.
I said, now that makes sense. She
Damn.
said,
Mind your business. I'll have you removed.
I said, it's a public park. The only thing you can remove is that trash. She gasped.
Did you just call my son trash?
I said, ma'am, look behind him. Then I said, not your fault. People get those two confused. She screamed,
We were here first.
Then my nephew looked up and said, no, you weren't. You just yelled the loudest. I was at the park with my nephew when a woman blocked the slide and said,
This playground is ours today. Find another.
Upside down. Boy, you turn me inside out.
I can't even do that again in that game.
Upside down.
And they even got that in the game. That's a fact, though.
A woman screamed at me for walking on the sidewalk in front of her house. Her car was parked across the whole thing, so I stepped around it. She came out and shouted, get off my property! I said, ma'am, this is a sidewalk. She said, it's in front of my house. That makes it mine. I said, by that logic, the sun's in front of your house, too. Should we all stop using it? Then I pointed at the trash bag on the curb. That's in front of your house, too. Yours? She snapped, that's not mine. I said, funny. It's the only thing out here that suits you. She got louder. Do you know who I am? I said, yeah. You're the reason this street has a group chat. She pointed at her car. That car costs more than your whole life. I said, is that where all your retirement money went, ma'am? She screamed, I'm calling the cops. Then her neighbor opened his door and yelled,
Karen, they already came twice this month.
A woman screamed at me for walking on the sidewalk in front of her house. I was on a bus when a woman turned around and said,
Excuse me, can you stop breathing in my direction?
I said, ma'am, that's not something I can turn off.
She pulled her scarf over her face. This is my personal airspace. You're contaminating it.
I said, it's a bus. The air is shared. That's how buses work. She looked me up and down.
People like you always argue. Just hold your breath until the next stop.
I said, the next stop is 11 minutes away. She said,
Then that's 11 minutes of peace for me.
I said, you're paying bus prices and asking for spaceship rules. She got louder.
I'll report you. I know people.
I said, report me for what? He breathed too loud. Arrest him. Is that what you're gonna say? She turned to the whole bus and yelled,
Is everyone here okay with this?
A man put his headphones on.
Then a little kid said, Ma'am, you're the only one talking.
A woman turned around and said,
Excuse me, can you stop breathing in my direction?
I said, ma'am, that... I was working the register at a coffee shop when a woman walked in, held up her phone, and said,
I don't pay. I'm an influencer.
I said, okay, and I'm the guy who needs $4. She gasped.
Do you know how much exposure I bring? I have a huge following.
I said, exposure doesn't pay my rent. Last guy who paid me an exposure, I starved for a week. She leaned on the counter.
One post from me and this place blows up.
I said, we're a coffee shop. We don't want to blow up. We want $4. She rolled her eyes.
You're being difficult. I do this everywhere and they always say yes.
I said, damn, so that's how you beg these days? She pointed the phone at me.
Say sorry. I'm filming this for my followers.
I said, great. Ask them to Venmo me the $4.
She said, that's not how it works.
I said, neither is free coffee.
I have more followers than this whole town.
Then a guy waiting behind her looked up from his phone and said,
Bro, I just found her page. She has 42 followers.
Damn!
After a coffee shop,
I
when a
got
woman
both
walked in,
subscribed
held the
there.
Patient walked into my office and said, Doctor, I think I have a heart assault. I said, a what? He said, a heart assault. My chest hurt and I fell down. I said, you mean a heart attack? He said, that's what I said, a heart assault. So I wrote it down. Okay, any other symptoms? He nodded. Yeah, I've been feeling really nauseous, so I took my temperature and I had a fever of 500. I said, sir, at 500 degrees you would be a pizza. He said, that explains why I'm so hot. I moved on. Any allergies?
Bro.
He said, yes. I'm allergic to peanut nuts and also biotics. I said, you mean antibiotics? He said, I know what I said. I sighed. Anything else? He froze. Then he leaned in and whispered, it's my wife. She said if I don't get better, she's leaving. I said, sir, there's nothing wrong with you. His eyes lit up. So I'm cured? I said, you were never sick. He jumped up. Doctor, you just saved my marriage. Then he ran out yelling, honey, he says I'm not allergic to you anymore. Patient walked into my office and said, Doctor, I think I have a heart assault. I said, a what? He said, a heart assault. My chest hurt.
Push your camel away.
It's allowed to be out. Do you like it?
I can smell it through the skin.
I was on my break eating the lunch I packed from home when a coworker marched over and said, you can't eat here, that's it, you're fired. I looked at my sandwich, then at her. Fired? You still asked permission to go to the bathroom. She crossed her arms. I've worked here 3 weeks. I basically run this place. I said, run this place? You're not even worth the water it takes to mop these floors. She got louder. Eating on shift is against the rules. I said, my break, my sandwich. The only thing you're in charge of is that little name tag. She said, I am writing you up right now. I said, with what? Your imagination? You don't have a pen, a title, or a reason. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling the manager to fire you. I said, great idea. Call the one person who can prove you can't fire anyone. She froze. A customer at the counter was trying not to laugh. Her little boy said, Mom, is she the boss? The customer said, no, honey. The kid nodded.
Then she can't fire anybody. She just yells for free.
I was on my break eating the lunch. I saw a manager screaming at a young worker for putting too much foam in a cup. The kid was maybe 17 and about to cry. The manager yelled, you are useless. My dog could do this job better. So I stepped up to the counter and said, then why isn't your dog here? Did he quit too? The manager turned to me. Mind your business. You know how much money I make? I said, judging by the shirt, not enough to iron it. He puffed up. I run this entire store. I said, you run it? You look like you can barely walk. The worker cracked a smile. The manager saw it and snapped, you think this is funny? I could fire him right now. I said, you could, and then you'd be the guy making the foam. With those hands? Rough day for the customer. He pointed at the door. Get out of my store. I said, your store? The sign says the owner is Bella, and you look like a balloon about to burst after taking half the oxygen in this city. He looked down at his stomach. I said, congrats, by the way. Now you look pregnant too. Then a little kid looked up and said,
My mom's name is Bella. That's her store. You're fired.
I saw a manager screaming at a young worker for putting too much foam. The kid was maybe 17. I came home and found my grandma on the phone crying, holding her card. A man's voice said,
Ma'am, if you do not read me the numbers, we will arrest you tonight.
So I took the phone from her hand and said, hey, she's 81. What's your excuse? He said,
Sir, this is the police.
I said, the police called my grandma to ask for her card? Is the station broke? He got loud.
Do not test me. What is your name?
I said, you're arresting me and you don't know my name. What kind of police work is that? He said,
We have your file.
I said, read the first line. He went quiet. Then he said,
It is confidential.
I said, it's blank, bro. You're looking at a blank screen in a room with 40 other guys doing this exact same call. I heard someone yell at him in the background. Grandma leaned in and whispered, should I still read the numbers? I said, no, Grandma, he's not the police. He's just a guy who failed at everything else. He screamed,
I have arrested many people.
I said, name one. Silence. Name one person you arrested. He said,
Johnny Science.
I said, did you just say Johnny Science? He said,
Yes, he was a doctor and he still got arrested. I will arrest you too.
Then my little brother looked up from the couch and said,
He can't even spell Johnny Science, let alone arrest us.
I came home and found my grandma on the phone crying. I tried to sit down on the only open seat on a packed bus, but a woman slammed her bag down and said,
Take it.
I looked at the bag, then at her, then back at the bag. Taken by who? She said,
My bag needs space.
So I leaned down to the bag and said, hey man, quick question. Did you pay for this seat? The bag said nothing. I stood back up. He's not answering. I think he's hiding something. She hugged the bag tighter.
You're being ridiculous. I paid for comfort.
I said, ma'am, you paid $2. That's not comfort, that's a coupon. She said,
People need to learn boundaries.
I said, your bag has better manners than you and it doesn't even have a face. Her face went red as a tomato. She pulled out her phone.
I'm calling the driver. You're harassing me.
I said, call him. Tell him your leather son needs legroom. Then she stood up and shouted at the whole bus.
Does anyone else have a problem with this?
And a little girl sitting across the aisle looked up and said,
Your bag didn't pay.
I tried to sit down on the only open seat on a packed... I was standing in a food line with my friend when a girl walked straight past everyone and cut right in front of us. I tapped her shoulder. Hey, you gotta wait in line like everyone else. She flipped her hair and said, I came here 2 days ago, so every time I come back, I just skip to the front. I was here first. My friend leaned in.
Ma'am, I also came here 20 years ago. In fact, I was born here on this exact floor. Now go to the back.
She spun around. How dare you talk to me like that? This is exactly why I hate men. What are you even useful for? If it wasn't for women, none of you would exist. My friend stayed calm and pointed.
That food you're waiting for? Made by a man. This restaurant? Owned by a man. That security guard keeping you safe? Also a man.
Then 3 more girls walked over, arms crossed.
You can't talk to her like that. You're a guy.
My friend paused.
Say no more.
He reached into his bag, pulled out a lipstick, put it on, fixed his hair, and turned back around.
Okay, now we can talk. You didn't skip the line because you were here first. You skipped it because waiting your turn is the one thing in life nobody taught you.
The girl started shouting, even my dad never talked to me like that. My friend gasped.
Whoa, you have one?
She crossed her arms. Excuse me? He said,
You're excused.
her face went red as a tomato. That's it. I'm reporting all of you to the police. That's when a little kid holding his mom's hand looked up and said, you can't report people for making you wait. That's just called being a normal person. I was standing in a food line with my friend when a girl walked straight past everyone and cut right in front of us. I tapped her shoulder. Hey, you gotta wait in line like everyone else. She flipped her hair and said, I came home early from work and found my wife on the couch with another man. I didn't yell. I just took my shoes off and said, oh, don't mind me. Continue. She jumped up. Honey, this isn't what it looks like. I said, you're right. It looks like a mistake, but he's clearly been one for years. The bald guy stood up all puffed up and said,
You need to respect her feelings, man.
I said, shut up. I'm not arguing with a man whose head looks like a boiled egg with anxiety. My wife gasped. Don't talk to him like that. He's a good man. I said, he's a shiny man. There's a difference. The bald guy tried again.
We're in love. You can't stop us.
I said, stop you? Brother, I'm helping you. Take her. Take the couch. Take the whole apartment. My wife smiled, thinking she won. So you're finally leaving? Good. This is my house now. I grabbed my keys and said, actually, funny thing, this apartment is a rental, and the lease, it's in your name. Every payment, every bill, all yours. Her smile dropped. The bald guy slowly looked at her.
Wait, you don't own this place?
I opened the door and said, good luck. She'll empty your wallet faster than your hairline emptied your head. I came home early from work and found my wife on the couch with another man. I didn't yell. I just took my shoes off and said, oh.
I was walking my dog on the public path by the parking lot when a woman came storming across the street yelling,
Why are you walking in front of my house with that stupid dog? Are you planning something?
I was just shocked. Is she talking to me? She crossed her arms and said,
I asked you a question. Are you deaf too?
So I started slowly looking down at the road, turning my head left and right like I lost something. The woman got heated.
I'm asking you a question. What are you even looking for?
I said, wait, I'm searching for your name on this road. I don't see any Karen written here. Her face went red as a tomato. She pointed at a house all the way across the street, a full block away, and screamed,
That's my house, so this is my road.
I said, ma'am, your house is so far away I need binoculars to see it. You don't own this road. You barely own that view. She stomped closer.
I'm calling the police. You and your ugly mutt are trespassing.
Right then my dog walked over and peed on the road. I looked at her and said, that's his way of saying this road doesn't belong to you. Her face somehow got even redder. Then a little girl walking by with her mom looked up and said, Isn't this the government road? My teacher said everyone can walk here. The woman spun around.
Stay out of this, child. But the girl just shrugged and said, I'm just saying I don't see your name on it either.
I was walking my dog on the public path by the parking lot when
Three guys in ski masks cornered me in an empty parking garage at midnight. The biggest one cracked his knuckles and said, Empty your pockets or we break your eggs. One of his crew leaned over and whispered, Bro, you mean his legs. The big guy paused, then shouted, I know what I said. Honestly, I was more scared of this chihuahua-looking guy than the rest of them. So I dropped everything I had. My wallet, my keys, and one loose Uno card that must have been stuck in my pocket for months. The big guy froze. He slowly picked up the card and whispered, Is that a draw 4? I said, Yeah, why? His whole crew went dead silent. Then he looked at me with the most serious face I've ever seen and said, You just disrespected the game. The next second, all three of them grabbed me and threw me in the back of their van. 3 minutes later, we pulled up to their hideout where a full deck was already fanned out on a crate. He sat down across from me and said, First to 0 cards wins. You lose, you walk home in your socks. I smiled because there was no way I was losing Uno to a grown man in a ski mask. We started playing. 20 minutes later, I had 11 cards in my hand and he had 1. He slammed his last card down, looked me dead in the eyes and said, Uno. He leaned back, pointed at my feet and said, Shoes off, lil bro. And this time I really will break your egg. His friend leaned in and whispered, Sir,
You mean legs?
3 guys in ski masks cornered me in an empty parking garage at midnight.
Oh my god! What is that?
I was spotting a stranger on the bench when his girlfriend marched over and screamed, Why are you standing over my man like that, you creep? I was just confused. I'm literally spotting him so the bar doesn't crush his chest. She wasn't having it. He doesn't need help from some, gym rat. The guy under the bar whispered,
Please don't let go.
but she smacked my hands off the bar anyway. 200 pounds dropped an inch toward his throat before I caught it again. So I looked at her and smiled. You know, it's kind of impressive. You're the only person here whose ego lifts more than her brain works. She smirked. At least I'm not sweaty and desperate like you. I racked the bar for her boyfriend and said, He looks pretty desperate to get away from you, though. Her face went red as a tomato. Right then, she grabbed his gym bag and threw it in the trash, screaming that he was never coming back. That's when a little kid on the mats behind us stood up. It was her son from a previous marriage. He looked at the boyfriend and said, Run while you can, mister. Last guy didn't. The boyfriend slowly slid out from under the bar, grabbed his bag out of the trash, and walked out the front door without a word. She screamed after him, Where do you think you're going? Somewhere your ego can't reach. I was spotting a stranger on the bench when his girlfriend marched over and screamed, Why are you standing over my man like that, you creep? I was just confused. I'm literally...
Oh my...
I was spotting a stranger on the bench. I was spotting a stranger on the bench when his I was spotting a stranger on the bench when his... I was spotting a stranger on the bench when his girlfriend marched over and screamed, Why are you standing over...
Bitch. Oh, that's the last video. I watched all this video. Hold on. Wow. Wow. Okay, so that's gonna be it for X and nigga dicks. I feel like I'm being watching some shit. Anyone watch me or something? Okay, I hope I'm safe. So peace out. Bye bye. Hope you have a great day.